So, good morning, everyone. Today I'm in conversation with Sophie Brazil about her experience of a virtual exchange that she's currently undertaking. So, before we get stuck into your experience, Sophie, please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm 22. I'm studying at Regensburg at the university. I study English and history to become a teacher, and I'm on my seventh semester now.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, Sophie. So, I understand that you're currently undertaking a virtual exchange. It's with Israel and Turkey, I believe. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that's structured?
Well, it's a seminar at our university, and at first I didn't know that this was going to be an exchange with other universities. So when our professor said, "Well, you're going to be in touch with people from other cultures and everything," I thought it was pretty cool. So I got excited to know more about it, and it's a project to create a learning task for students with other students that want to be teachers. So we're basically having a task for students of high school or middle school, depending on what our objective will be at the end of the project. And our goal is to talk about one of the sustainable development goals from the UN. So we have to create a task-based learning task for
Okay.
students. Yeah.
Let me just ask you, so you're working with students from Israel and Turkey, and you're all, just so I understand, you're all training to be teachers of English, is that correct? Right.
That's right.
And how many of you are, how is that structured? How are you working in teams, presumably? Tell me a little bit more about the structure, and then I'll ask you about your content and learning objectives.
Yeah, we are, I think, 6 or 8 people in a group, depending on how many per group are separated. Um, our group, I think, is 6 people, and we meet every week to talk about it. So we have to get in touch with them. We have to talk about issues that concern us as like normal people. I know some people have the impression, well, teachers are just teachers and they don't do anything else, but we actually have to talk about serious things and exchange with them on what do they think about it, the current politics and issues around the world. So that's pretty
Mm.
much what we have to do.
So you're studying in Germany. You have peers from Israel and Turkey. So your backgrounds and situations are obviously quite different. And
Yeah.
so, how is that? And what sort of discussions are you having? Can you share with us what are some of the things that are coming out in your discussions with your peers? Because I think that's really interesting and very multicultural.
Yeah, it's very interesting because actually our group is very diverse. We have 2 students from Israel, 2 students from Turkey, and the 2 of us that are from Germany are actually not German. I'm not German, I'm Brazilian. So it's also something that adds to our exchange. This meeting of cultures is really interesting to see because um, we talk about things like marriage and having kids, and we're all girls in the group, so we have like different imaginations of what our lives should be at this point. And it's a cultural thing, I guess. We talk about I'm 22 and some of them are older, they already have kids, they're married, and I'm at some point in my life that I don't really, I cannot relate to them because they need to tend to their kids and to their husbands. And so we talk about it, and we have to also find a time that really matches our schedules. So that's really difficult. Um, but it's interesting because then they ask us about food and what music we like to hear. So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was going to ask you about challenges and hurdles, and you've started touching on those because you all have different backgrounds and needs, and you touched on timing and finding a suitable time to meet. So presumably, so you're meeting synchronously on a platform, maybe Zoom, maybe not, maybe something else. So how are your different backgrounds and ages impacting on the type of tasks and learning objectives that you're planning for?
I guess it's also something that we learn at university. The way we learn how to teach at university here is different how they learn to teach there. For us, it's more like we have to guide the students through the tasks and be more of a supporter role. And for them, it's more of a role where they have to tell the students to do everything.
Mm.
So basically more controlling, and we have more of somewhat of a free hand, I think, which
So
is
how does that reconcile itself? How does that all, you obviously talk about this a lot, so tell us more.
I like it a lot. Honestly, being honest, I like the way we approach teaching here, because you're supposed to be there as a guide to the student and say, well, you can do it and you have the capacity to do it, where they have to guide, I mean, like set a structure for them and say, well, you have to do this, and the next step is the next thing. It's I had classes like that when I was younger and I didn't really like it. So that's why I like the approach I'm learning at university now. But I can also understand totally why the other approach is also very valid.
So
I guess,
how, so sorry to interrupt, but just so you're planning tasks for as future teachers. So are you each taking on board the other's background and ways of teaching? I mean, are you learning from them? Is there a lot of peer-to-peer kind of learning going on here?
for sure, yeah. I would definitely say it's a peer learning. We have to take their suggestions and they have to take our suggestions, and we have to find a middle ground, and that's where it gets tricky because sometimes it's difficult to agree on something you're not used to. But since this has been going on for 3 months now, I think,
Right.
yeah,
And
we've
how long is it in total, Sophie, that you're
I think
working together?
we are ending it in January.
Right. And
Yeah,
how's it going so far then? At what point are you?
I mean, I think we are on the one step ahead of finishing it. I think the last task will be uploaded in January at the beginning when we come back from the Christmas break. And then we have to hand in the final task that we are designing as a group for the students. So far, it has been things like tell your group mates about how you celebrate Christmas, or tell them some of your favorite foods, um, tell them what concerns you as global and local issues so you can find an agreement at the end. And right now we're at the point that we had to talk about local issues here in Regensburg, and they had to talk about local issues in Israel and Turkey. So we can agree on a baseline on how we're going to design the final task.
I see. And I'm just thinking of local situations in Israel and Turkey, and in general, the situation in the Middle East is very precarious at the moment. Is that having an impact on your talks?
On our group, not really. They haven't mentioned anything about it. I mean, they mentioned things like poor infrastructure and climate change and gender inequality, but we've heard from previous exchanges that there have been some problems where other group members have mentioned that, well, there's war going on and we're not safe. And sometimes when they scheduled a meeting, they had to go into bunkers because there was a bombing outside and they couldn't partake in it. So it's a very delicate situation. And I think we have maybe the obligation to just be humans at this moment and understand that this is not a difficult situation. This is not an easy situation. I'm sorry. we cannot relate to what's going on because it's nearly as bad as what's going on here. I mean, we also have problems here, but it's not as bad as it is there. So we have to be understanding and just be there for them. And this is the point where this cultural exchange really teaches you something, I think personally, because you have to deal with this kind of situations. I mean, you're not there and someone is going through that and you have to be understanding. So
Yeah. And what are you learning from that? I mean, were you expecting to have to deal with that kind of difficult situation when you embarked on this virtual exchange?
I wasn't sure how open they were going to be about the situation that they're going through. So I guess I didn't have really any expectations. I just thought, well, if something like that happens, we have to be there for them and just support them and tell them, okay, I'm sorry that you're going through this and I wish I could do something. And I know here is not nearly as bad as it is there for you. But if you want to talk about it, I'm here, and just support them and take this role of, well, being a friend, basically.
I see. And would you say that during the 3 months you've been working together as a group, how is that relationship evolving? Do you feel like you're building relationships with the other your other students in the group?
Yeah, I think we're becoming friends at this point since it's been going on for so long. We kind of know how to talk around them and how to, schedule our things that so it is okay for everybody at this time, or we know how each one kind of ticks, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I guess there is a relationship being formed, but I'm not sure to which degree. I wish it could be more because I like meeting people. I like meeting people from other cultures. I mean, I'm not German, I'm Brazilian, so I like this cultural exchange. And I guess they are also really, they would agree with me on this one, and they're also very curious about what we like, what we dislike. And on Zoom meetings they say, well, your hair looks pretty today, and that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So the relationship is going a little bit beyond the requirements of the virtual exchange by the sounds of things. You're
Yeah,
sharing,
yeah,
other personal stuff as well, right?
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And what other thoughts, what other skills do you think you're developing or will have developed by the end of this project, this international collaboration that you're doing?
I think the main goal is for us to be a global citizen, so have an understanding that there are other cultures and that we're going to get in touch with other cultures, and just really be open for it, because some people don't really I mean, when they get in touch with others, I mean, othering is also a problem, but when they got touch with people from other countries, they think, well, this person maybe represents the whole country, and that's not really true. You're not a representative for your country alone. Each person has a different experience, and each person has a different background, a different culture, how they were brought up as a child and their families. So having an open mind for everything that comes to you is really the takeaway from all of this.
I'm just wondering about have you had kind of disagreements in the room, and how has there been any conflict, and if so, how have you been dealing with those disagreements?
In our group, there has been no disagreement, which is kind of impressive, to be honest, because we thought there was going to be arguments and discussions and maybe, some heated things, but so far it's been okay. We have not had an argument. Maybe we have a slight argument about meeting and how we're gonna design all of this, but it's nothing major like we've heard from other previous exchanges. So that's not bad.
But do you think you're avoiding it, or it just is the way that the dynamic is working within the group?
I think it's just the dynamic, how the group is working, because I've heard also from other groups that some group members have not showed up so far, and it's been 3 months and they didn't say anything. Or sometimes the other students from the other universities said something and our teammates from Germany understood it wrong or something like that. But it's just kind of working for us.
And what advice would you give to others considering undertaking a virtual exchange like yours? Would you repeat the experience? Would you?
Definitely. I think it's an opportunity for you to know how to argument. I mean, you develop yourself in so many areas. Intercultural exchange, you get to learn how other people work and how their cultures are. You get to make new friends. You get to work on something together, which also develops your team skills and how you work on groups. So it's definitely worth a try.